Hi, I'm super excited to interview Dr. Hisham Badarudin. He is considered one of the pioneers in longevity medicine in Singapore. Longevity is a hot topic at the moment. Excited to kind of learn from, his journey, what brought him from where he was to where he is now, and how he's impacting our lives in longevity. This episode is, like the others, is sponsored by Global Mortgage Group. We are an international real estate financing brokerage focused on helping people extract liquidity from their home equity in the US, Singapore, London, and Australia, as well as America Mortgages. We're a US direct lender helping folks outside the US obtain a mortgage for their US real estate investments. You can find Dr. Hisham's contact details of Bartley Clinic in the information below. And I hope you find this interview informational, educational, and interesting. Hi, Dr. Hisham. I'm really excited and happy that you're joining us today to talk about longevity in Singapore, as well as your journey. How did you get here from where you started, I believe, from Brunei, with roots in Brunei, and now you're here leading the charge on a very topical, subject that many are becoming more and more aware of. So to begin with, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? I'll ask questions here and there to kind of perk some interest. And so I'm really excited to get things going. So Dr. Hisham Badarudin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Well, I'm Hisham. I'm actually 53 years old. I'm a medical doctor by training. I started life after graduating from the University of Nottingham in emergency medicine, where I worked in the hospitals in the UK, from Nottingham to Oxford to London, up to Edinburgh, and also back in Brunei. After about 5 years or so in emergency medicine, and after resuscitating too many young cardiac arrests, too many young people with chronic disease, I thought to myself, this shouldn't be happening. And I actually asked, my boss at that point in time, I was working in Brunei then, what's happening here? We should be looking into this. We should be studying why these youngsters, young adults are having heart attacks, having stroke, all this chronic disease shouldn't be happening. And my boss at that point in time said, well, I'm paying you to treat them, not to prevent it or study it. After a while, it didn't feel right, so I went back to square one and redid my training in public health, in preventive medicine, right, where I'm a specialist now. So I did that for a while, worked with the Ministry of Health in Brunei, worked with the Ministry of Health in Singapore, advised for WHO, ASEAN, and a few other, international organizations. After working with the Ministry of Health, had the opportunity to go with and do a few more interesting things, like becoming a management consultant with a Big Four firm. Went into biopharma, went into healthcare insurance, but a few years ago decided to go back into clinical practice. But this time focusing on preventive medicine and longevity medicine. So, which is where I am now, where I'm practicing longevity medicine in Singapore.
That's great. What an interesting journey. I think the sliding door moment is where, as a doctor, I was going to be a doctor. I did my pre-med in the US, a fairly good school. It was a lot harder than I really wanted it to be. But you kind of enter as a young adult life where you want to change the world, whether you want to be an engineer and build rockets to the moon, or you want to cure cancer. Yeah. There's always sort of an altruistic motive in, which is what it should be. But then also often along the way you get disillusioned because the work is too difficult, or there are commercial aspects of it, or there's some non-congruent elements to what you're trying to do in the institution, right? Institutional norms. But the moment where you said, wait, why don't we focus on preventing this stuff so we can treat less of this stuff, people are healthier, right? And I think that's good. So, you're kind of a leader in Singapore, one of the leaders in Singapore on this movement, and I think it's only going to get become more and more, and as people get more information, which is part of this show, with more information, it'll perk more interest, and hopefully that's the takeaway.
Hopefully.
So I know some of these answers because we've met and talked before. Yeah. So when you started your preventive medicine and longevity journey in Singapore, what was that? Did you start your own practice, or did you work for another clinic? And also, you want to talk about some of the university work that you're doing here and what that entails?
Okay. So when I first started my journey into longevity medicine, it was actually after meeting, some people who wanted to set up a longevity clinic in Singapore, right? Who I met through my previous jobs, in healthcare insurance. I actually said to myself, like a newbie, what is this? What is longevity medicine, right? They introduced me to Professor Andrea Maya, who I spoke to. I trained with her, who introduced me to some courses that I could deep and dive into longevity medicine. Yeah. I had to pass the courses, obviously, show them that I passed, I got the certificates, because they wanted to set up this clinic, and obviously the person who was going to be running the clinic, i.e. me, needed to be certified for this and knowledgeable in this. So yeah, passed and got the certificates. But when I did the courses, I realized that actually longevity medicine is really, preventive medicine on steroids. Really. It's about looking at the signs, the signs of aging, right? Looking at evidence, looking at what works and what doesn't, okay? Looking at basically lifestyle modification, certain supplementation, looking at biomarkers, genetics, microbiome, and everything else, and pulling all that information together to produce a plan for action for the patient. Okay, I think one of the things in longevity medicine is that, it's not a cookie cutter approach. All of us are unique individuals with our own genetic profile, our own lifestyle, and our own kind of behaviors. So you need to adapt whatever approaches you have or will do to that individual to suit them, right? And I think that's one of the challenges. But anyway, so the main thing I found about longevity medicine was the fact that, it's actually preventive medicine, but with additional things, right? It is kind of very cutting edge. It is a new science, and there is a lot of actually effort and a lot of information, new information from around the world regarding it in the past 2 years, 3 years, right? So I think it's very, very exciting, and I'm very grateful for the people who asked me to help set up that longevity clinic, also Professor Andrea Maya for bringing me into it.
Yeah, cool. So my immediate takeaway is hats off to you for still being able to take tests at our age. I don't know if I could be able to do that myself. It's interesting, as I hear you eloquently talk about this, I would hazard to guess that there are more of us that know more about how to treat a car that you're driving, or how you treat so for me, preventive medicine and longevity is an investment. It's an investment, not to sound corny, it's investment in ourselves. But if we buy a sports car, we know what kind of wheels to buy for the kind of driving you're going to be doing, what kind of oil, what kind of, if it's in the sun, we have to cover it. If you're investing in stocks, my personality, at this point in time in my life, maybe I want some dividend stocks because it's cash flow. But then, I don't just look at the numbers. I got to look at, what do they do? What's the mosaic? Like, where are they based? Where are the customers? That's proper. That's what most rational people do. But when it comes to our own body, I don't think we do that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, if I see something that says NMN, I'm going to take it, which I have stopped, by the way. Yeah. I've stopped basically all supplements except for AG1. and some multivitamins and some biotin. I feel like there's not enough information on how to paint that mosaic about ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? We all know pieces of information that are mandatory curriculum for kids, like the little triangle, you got the eggs and cheese up here, the meat's down here. And each culture is a little bit different. But I feel like now obviously there's blue light is part of it at night, it affects sleeping, and then your REM stage, and then you can't eat processed foods, and this is butter good, it was bad before, now it's good. So all of this information is available for people who want it or have the resources to act on it, right? But like I said, I think there's just not enough tools and information for somebody to actually take care of themselves.
Yes.
Which is the most important thing. So anyhow, it's kind of a long road to saying, like, it really just takes, a small group of people to kind of affect change. And then slowly people, I'm sure Prem, who's operating the camera at the moment, is learning something. And I think hopefully by the end of this talk, maybe she'll change her diet, and as well as others in the office. There's a very famous quote by Margaret Mead, which is, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has, right? So, you're one of these guys. Okay, so you started off along with Andrea Meyer, and that's Chi Longevity.
Yes, I helped set up Chi Longevity together with Professor Andrea Meyer, the founders and the team. Chi Longevity is a great place, hats off to them, for setting it up. And now there are others. It's definitely a front runner, right? A pioneer in this space. I think Singapore in itself is really trying to lead in terms of longevity medicine in the region, right? By setting up the Center for Healthy Longevity in the National University of Singapore. They have a clinic now, a longevity clinic in Alexandra Hospital as well, and there's others following as well. Decided that longevity medicine in itself is not just complex because it's new, and there's a lot of information, right? From the tens, even maybe 100+ biomarkers that you can test, to the genetics, to the microbiome, to the imaging, to all the other diagnostics that you have to put that information together. But it's also very expensive. It's expensive, right? And people actually, hesitate because you tell them, look, it's going to cost you what, 10,000, 15,000. If you go to some of the longevity centers even in Europe and America, it can cost you 30, 40,000, right? For testing and some of the management and so it's not for everyone, right? But I think wouldn't it be great if we can have this science, this wisdom, and then bring it to the masses, right? Bring it to the masses. So that's what I'm trying to do now, with No View Health. I'm trying to bring, the science of longevity medicine to people, and hopefully it wouldn't cost them, 10,000, 15,000. Okay, it's still slightly more expensive than your executive health package, okay, because of all the different biomarkers that we use, different types of testing that we use, things like that. But we make it affordable by breaking it up into bite-sized pieces, right?
Interesting.
So there's two groups of people who go into longevity medicine, right? One that want to increase their lifespan, i.e. the number of years they live, right? Some of my patients even say that I want to be immortal. I'm like, right, okay, I'll try my best, okay? Some of them say, I want to live till 100 years old. I'll say, I'll try my best, okay? But I think what is more important than just lifespan is your health span, the number of years you live without ill health, right? It's better to live till 100 with, maybe just 1 year of ill health, rather than live till 100 but you have 25, 30 years of ill health. So I think longevity medicine, for me, is actually increasing your health span and therefore hopefully increase your lifespan as well. So if you increase health span, okay, and therefore your lifespan, then you can actually do things in bite-sized pieces, right? Rather than spend 15,000 a year, let me work out what's most important for you. And my approach is always been, what is your concern, right? If your concern is cancer, we'll focus on that. If your concern is cardiac disease, we'll focus on that, okay? If your concern is cognition, we'll focus on that. And we'll prevent that from, that disease or that condition from happening, and we'll optimize it for you. And hopefully they will optimize the rest of the stuff for you, right? Okay, of course, we will also look at your joints, your liver, your heart and everything else, your kidneys along the way, okay? But I don't think everything needs to be done immediately. You focus on what is the 20% that makes 80% difference, right? And therefore, you bring the cost down, and then you spread the cost over. I think that's the approach that I'm trying to take.
I think that makes sense as well. It's similar to, I feel like everything in my life is compared to some sort of financial comparison, but it's like construction financing, right? It's like if I got a piece of land and I want to build a 100-story hotel and I need $1 billion, I don't need $1 billion. I need $5 million to get some permits. And then once that's done, I need $20 million to put the things in the ground. And then once that's done, I need another $30 million to put some concrete. So it's the journey is important, and how, because at some point I suspect, like maybe your client says, I want cognitive, I feel like I'd like some improvement here, but there's always positive and negative unintended consequences in life. And maybe he goes, oh wow, actually cognitively I'm really good, but my bone density is really weak, right? Stuff like that. Fascinating. Well done. I think, I have a few questions. In typical Singapore fashion, their ability to, I did a podcast recently about this, but Singapore's ability to identify things and act on them are unparalleled in the world, right? So they're kind of first mover or ahead of the pack mentality on this longevity trend. I'm just curious, I think I know the answer, but do you think Singapore, and this is just, we could just hypothesize, right? Do you think Singapore's interest is more, I suspect it's a little both, but more like this is what's popular and hence we want to lead it, so more we can generate, a knowledge base of people who, because if it's going to be popular like AI, we want all the top longevity guys here. Or they're like, another aspect would be, if we could improve longevity, the quality of our citizens' health will go up, at least for the big voting party. And if that happens, our need to subsidize them in the later years goes down, right? So it's more like spend some now, and so you can spend less later. And the other aspect is, let's just create a epicenter of longevity in Asia, and we get all the smart people here, and then they go spend money, and there's an economic benefit. So
I think it was initially the second. So that in Singapore, we have one of the longest lifespans in the world. But with that lifespan, the health span has not really increased. So we spend about 10 years in ill health in Singapore. We live till about 84. But 10 years of that, 84 years, we spend in ill health, right? And actually chronic diseases are actually increasing, right? So if you live longer, okay, obviously that CPF, that retirement account will not be enough for you, right? Okay, so you want to work longer, you want to be more productive, you want to stay healthier. I think that was the main aim. The main aim was actually to make people stay productive, stay healthy through this new science. But with this new science, people are beginning to realize there's an innovation kind of opportunity here to bring in people in. There's an economic opportunity here to build, longevity clinics, right? Bring people in. there's startups, entrepreneurship,
Yeah,
and everything else. So I think that by doing this, actually there's additional benefits as well, right? So I think it's something which is quite exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a privilege, and I'm not trying to pitch for my PR status here, but it's such a privilege to live here for on all sorts of areas. So, what's your ultimate goal? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 and 10 years, yourself and your practice?
So I hope, I will still be here in 5 and 10 years,
Yeah, as a proponent of longevity, let's hope that you're going to make it past 10 more years.
So, but I do hope that, we get to a stage where we, the middle class, right? At least the middle class can, can access this, right? I think what I would also like to see is that the longevity medicine become, recognized as a subspecialty in medicine, right? A true subspecialty in medicine. And there are efforts globally, through groups and networks that I'm also involved in, doctors around the world, that we are trying to, talk to the associations, talk to the societies, medical societies, and tell them, look, we should be recognized as well, because this is something that the world needs, right? So we are trying to do that. I do hope that the ultimate aim actually, right, is actually to build a digital twin of the human being, right? What do I mean by that, right? So with all that information, I can tell you there's a lot of information that we analyze in longevity medicine through just one individual. And it's not a health screening, okay? So a lot of people misunderstand that and they say, I just did a health screening. No, this is not a health screening. This is actually a longevity program. We look at the biomarkers to assess where you are, where your systems are, and things like that, and then plan out that your health screening is just trying to detect signs of early disease. We are not. We are trying to prevent disease from happening. So it's a different kind of analysis. But that information that we gather from the diagnostics, from the x-rays, from the MRIs, the CT scans and ultrasounds, and all the biomarkers and everything else, what if we can put it into a platform, right? And then create your digital twin. This is you now, okay? And through the advancements in what we know about management and treatment, okay, of longevity through supplements, through medicines, through whatever, stem cells or whatever, right? We will say, or your lifestyle modifications will say, okay, if you follow this, in 5 years, this will be you. Wouldn't that be great? I'll say, okay, this is you genetically, biologically, and based on this, if you do take these steps, okay, of course, there's no guarantee, but some certainty, this will be you, right? 10 kilos lighter, your cholesterol's normal, right?
Which is the cause and effect that you want, right?
Precisely, but at the moment there's no such platform. There's no,
Right.
Yeah.
Curious, is this covered by insurance?
Yes, that's the other challenge. The other challenge is that it's quite surprising that you can get coverage for,
TCM.
Yeah. But longevity, there are certain things like health screening you can cover it under, okay, but you have to know, because there's so many variations of healthcare insurance in Singapore, you have to look at your client's policy and say, okay, this we can do, this we cannot do, and and work it out with them.
Yeah.
Most of my patients pay out of pocket.
Yeah. I think if the conversation starts to move to insurance, it will be here for another 5 hours because I have a big rant as well. But so super interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we need to look at, because the thing is, if you want to save on healthcare spend, right? Okay, you need prevention.
Yeah.
And you need to let people be able to access those preventive care, right?
I think, any disruptive industry, whether it's banking, you've got Revolut, you've got DBS, you've got internet, so you've got AT&T, Singtel, and you've got My Republic,
Yeah.
right? Any industry. So insurance, you've got the behemoths,
Yeah.
right? And it's this incumbent foundation of infrastructure, how they sell the loans and how they hedge the risk, all into the reinsurers of Munich Re and stuff, and that whole food chain. And to kind of change that it's like the
Yeah.
Sisyphus pushing the stone uphill. Like, we all know it needs to be done, but the incumbent infrastructure on the people the companies that need to change to get it done, it's too difficult.
Yeah.
That's why I think there should be a new insurance company, because the old ones, you just can't move them. It's like that's why Revolut is around. Like, they just start with a blank slate and well, we don't need 99% of this stuff. We'll just keep this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I use Revolut. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think there could be a role where it's just a simpler product that is just focused on longevity.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. The other thing be accepted is the fact that, all these clinical guidelines are in a way outdated if you look at it from a longevity perspective. You look at LDL, right? LDL, low density lipoprotein. Okay. We look at ApoB, right? Okay. You look at HbA1c, right? We look at insulin, we look at homocysteine. So these are markers which not many, I would say, conventional doctors look at. But these are more accurate in terms of predicting chronic disease, predicting cardiac risk, and everything else. So we look at things like LPA, right? All these things. Yes. So those are the things that needs to be accepted, put into clinical guidelines to say that, this is what we need to look at if we want the whole population to be healthier, right?
Yeah, even in my lifetime, we've gone from butter is bad, margarine is good,
Yeah.
to now butter is good again, right? Which I think is, to, animal meat is bad, to, less is bad, to all vegetarian is good. And now it's kind of going back the other way.
Yeah.
Like, eating meat is good again.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, that kind, aside from the kind of animal cruelty issue, which totally get, but from a health standpoint, there are so much information on, like anything, you have growth. It's just like longevity, right? Like, I can live to 100, but what's the quality of that growth?
Yeah.
I have a strong. Why am I comparing it to an economy? Like, a country has strong GDP growth, but is it cyclical or is it non-cyclical, right? Cyclical meaning it's good for 5 years. 5 years later, it's bad, right? So it's the quality of the growth. But what's interesting is it's cholesterol. We all know, but there's so much information now that contradicts each other, and you're like, who knows what they're talking about?
That's right. And I can tell you one thing. Okay, my patients or clients, as I call them, because they're not supposed to be ill, so they're not really patients, they're clients. Okay, they come to me. Okay, and they have 101 questions. Okay, because they follow people on TikTok, they follow people on Instagram. They get this and they say, look, this guy says this guy says that, right? They come in with 30 different supplements. I no joke. Okay, I've got patients who come in and I tell them, look, what do you take? They say this, and you count them, it's like 20 or 30 different supplements, and half of them cancel each other out, and then they've never done a basic biomarker test before, and they do it, then they get surprised and they say, look, why are my biomarkers all over the place, right? Because one, you follow someone, okay, someone's health plan and health habits and everything else. You follow someone's health plan, right? Okay, based on that person's genetics, based on that person's biomarkers, right? But you are not that person. You are your own individual.
Yeah.
You have your own different lifestyle, own different habits and everything else. So why are you following this person? Okay, you should actually look at your own, work out your own and things like that. These people are there to give you just a reference guide, right? Kind of thing. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, okay? A lot, okay? And there are a lot of studies, if you look at it. One study will say, yes, butter is good. One study will say margarine is good, okay? So it's up to people like myself to balance it out, right? And decipher what is true and what is not true, right? Okay.
And I suspect now also, it's also the answer you're looking for. Like, for example, if I take A, well, it's bad for B. Okay, but actually if you take A, actually a new studies show it's actually good for C. So then do I take A to make it good for C, but it's bad for B? And then it's this Monte Carlo simulation of like outcomes that you're like, dude, like, so that's actually, to be honest, I don't take any more supplements. I was taking everything.
That's right. So it's down to the basics. The basics of what? Okay, how much you sleep? What's the quality of your sleep? Okay, sleep is very, very important. Okay, but you're taking it from someone who has bad habit from medical school and bad habit from being a junior doctor. I don't sleep that well. Okay, right? But studies have shown that sleep is important for longevity. Okay, because it resets your body. It helps with autophagy, right? The body taking out dead cells, that will damage you and everything else. Okay, it's good for your brain as well. Then the other part is your nutrition. Okay, your nutrition needs to be individualized, right, based on this. And there's a lot of things out there which are very westernized. I'm nothing wrong with Western nutrition, but hey, I don't eat pasta every day, right? So I think longevity in a way needs to be, there needs to be more work to look at Asian.
Yeah.
Asian food, Asian lifestyles, Asian habits, right? Because I don't eat salad every day.
Yeah.
I do, I do eat salad, but not every day. Exercise. Everybody's too busy to exercise nowadays, right? But what kind of exercise? Is it HIIT, high intensity interval training, right? What do, right? Do you just slow walk? Do you swim? Yeah. Then basically, so sleep, nutrition, exercise, okay, right? What else is there? There's stress, right? You need to, just go and, meditate, right? Yeah, and I do that half an hour every day, right? Just go to a room, put on my noise cancelling phones, black it out, and just be in my own zone and listen to me and not, everywhere else. So these little things, these basic things are very, very important. But what do people focus on? Okay, they focus on quick fixes, which may or may not work, and which may be based on misinformation. Yeah.
Okay. So actually, you sort of answered my last two questions. We're coming up to kind of the length of the show. I wanted to end with two questions. But I'm gonna, which was what are some of the takeaways, which you just mentioned. Everybody's different. Just focus on the basic high-level things. Sleep well, find ways to de-stress, eat well according to your culture, and exercise, whatever that is. Doing something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave two questions. First of all, and this may or may not have to do with longevity. I want to ask, what keeps you up at night? It doesn't sound like you sleep much anyway. So, what keeps you up at night? And the last question is, who do you think we should have next? Who do you think I should have on the show next?
Okay, who you should have on the show next is someone called. I've got two names, so Dr. Arun, okay, or Jingzi. Okay, they're both friends of mine. Okay, Dr. Arun is actually a medical doctor, but he doesn't practice. But he is more a personal trainer or someone or health coach. Jingzi is, someone who is also a personal trainer, health coach. They have two different approaches, which is I find quite fascinating. So they're quite fun. I think what wakes me up at night. Okay, yeah, I was going to say that Netflix from my wife, all right? But I think if she hears that, I'm sure she'll see that. No, she won't be too happy, but what wakes me up at night is...
more, what are you worried about? What keeps you up at night that you kind of,
Yeah, so actually, what makes me worried is the fact that, I will end up in a hospital bed, right? Intubated, for many, many years, not recognizing anyone around me, okay, and not being able to think, okay, because this is most of what I have is this, right? And I rely on this, right? I rely on my brain, yeah, and having to be dependent on people and things like that. I see my parents, right? Thankfully, they're you know, they're doing well, right? Even without the longevity, kind of management. But yeah, but I also see my wife's father suddenly deteriorating over 1 year. Yeah, he was well, and then after that, suddenly something happened, and no one can explain. MRIs all clear, CT scans all clear. So that is what I am worried about. I don't want that to happen to anyone else, right? So I don't want that to, because it is scary,
Fair enough. Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. Which is part of the purpose of this show, is to kind of bring awareness to everybody. So listen, I'm going to kind of end it here. I want to thank you, Dr. Hisham, for spending the time this afternoon to come talk to us. Your details of your practice and your contact details are going to be in the description.
Sure.
I'll summarize this in the description, and we'll post this up on our YouTube channel. Thank you again for all your insights, knowledge, and grateful that you're sharing this with us and everybody
Thank you.
watching.
Thank you for inviting me over. Yeah, thank you.